我现在在拍一个视频，我在这个视频里再说明一下我怎么学中文了。Now, what I just said was I'm currently recording a video and I'm explaining how I've learned Chinese. A lot of you came here in the first place by watching a lot of my lifestyle content. Now, for those that have felt inspired, I need you to really have sink in that all of this didn't happen overnight. It's been a buildup of years and years of dedication, blood, sweat, and tears of just showing up every single day and knowing that one day these skills would fall into place and allowing me to embrace these opportunities. What I want to talk about in this video is what speaking fluent Chinese Mandarin has gave me in life, the doors it's opened, and most importantly, the lessons I have learned by learning one of the hardest languages in the entire world. And the lessons that I'm about to share with you can be used and applied to a lot of other things, not just learning Chinese Mandarin, but also other languages, or wanting to start a business, or wanting to learn a new skill, or wanting to make videos like these. Which leads very nicely into the first lesson that I want to share with you, and that is that communication is really the most important thing in life. Before actually learning Chinese, I had to learn English first. I am from a very small part in the Netherlands. Both my parents are Dutch, and I ended up dropping out when I was 16. And as a matter of fact, I have learned my English by gaming online, and there's still a channel that lives out there on the internet, which you can probably find if you do a really good job looking for it. I'm just gonna play it out loud to show you the state of my English when I was that young.
Yo guys, Daniel here. I was recording with Camtasia on my speed art, and when it was done, I would render it and it crashed.
So yeah, as you can tell, it wasn't that great. And putting together this video and writing some things down that I wanted to talk about, one of the things is that times are really changing. Travel is becoming more and more accessible. The internet connects us to people from all over the world. And the one thing that plays a very big role in all of this is communication. Communication comes with culture, because one thing that I've learned is that wherever you go in the world, the same message may be communicated differently depending on what kind of culture these people are familiar with. So for example, in Asia, they're not as direct as they would be in, let's say, Hispanic countries. And that is really a cultural thing. So when exposing yourself to these different cultures, different kinds of people, you start to understand them better.
我是荷兰的。
荷兰的。
对，荷兰，欧洲。
那你中文说的不错呀。
谢谢，谢谢。
And at the core of us as humans, one massive desire is to be and feel understood. And that all starts with communication. Other than that, when you start to learn a new language yourself, you also expand the people that you can reach. So if I would have never taken the step to learn English to the extent of being able to shoot videos like these or doing that in Chinese Mandarin, I would expose myself to so many more people in comparison to just making a video like this in Dutch. If you are someone that has big goals, if you are someone that is ambitious, speaking multiple languages is just such a big benefit. When you go to different parts in the world, you are able to communicate. If you have never left your hometown, if you're currently still in the place that you grew up in, I would highly recommend, and this is absolutely one of the things that have changed my life, to move overseas for if may it be a year, may it be 2 years, may it be for a longer period of time, but what happens here is that you're really broadening your perspective. And what I mean by that is that you're just simply exposing yourself to more things in life. You get to put things in perspective. If I look back at the things that I have seen in countries such as Africa, India, the US, Europe, it's so different, but it's just really putting things in perspective and also really making you understand what's important. When you go to China for the first time, you'll see that there's not that many people that speak English. And when you have absolutely no way of communicating with people, it feels like you're in the Stone Age, because you have to literally just speak to people using hand gestures, or like, I want whatever, like I want food or something, because you can't communicate because you don't understand each other. And that really has showed me how important communication is, because it's the way we connect with other people. When I was about 13, I went to China for the first time. And when I went there for the first time, I just realized that no one understood me and I didn't understand them. So that kind of sparked that interest for me to start learning that language. Now, Chinese Mandarin consists of 4 different tones. Ma, 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 ma. Those are 4 different words. So when starting to learn Chinese, it is so important to first and foremost get the tones down, because even if you would know how to say certain things, if you can't pronounce them in the right way, people will still not understand you. So to give you an example, ma, the first tone, that means mother. The third one, ma, means horse. So you need to be really careful here. And then you also have one that is just like light and quick, ma, which is turning a sentence into a question. So as you can see, the way you pronounce things it's just something that, you know, especially if you don't grow up here, or it's just something we're not used to. So as someone who's learned Chinese for a very long time, focus on the tones first, make sure that you understand how to pronounce certain things and make sure that you pronounce them right. Then the second thing that is really interesting about Chinese is the way the sentences are structured. And Chinese in itself is a very systematic language, and I think there's so much beauty to that. If, for example, you look at how you count in French or how you count in Dutch, for example, or even English, it's just complicated. It doesn't make sense. So for example, if in Chinese, if you would like to say 44, 4, 10, 4. So it's just very logical. Like if you want to say 99, it's 就是九, which means 9, 10, 9. If you want to say 100, you say 190, which for example is 190, and it's just like literally just adding the numbers next to each other, and that's like the full number. So it just makes so much sense, and that not only applies to numbers, but also to, for example, words such as computer. So you would have 电脑, which means electricity and brain. So if you say electric brain, it becomes computer. Another one, 火车, which means fire, car. Back in the day, trains were not using electricity, they were using coal and fire to get the train going. And that's how they decided, let's combine the word fire and car, and that's gonna become train. And that's like applied to a lot of different words where it's just very logical. So if I, for example, were to say, 我现在在拍一个视频，我在这个视频里再说明一下我怎么学中文了. Now, what I just said was I'm currently recording a video and I'm explaining how I've learned Chinese. So the way that sentence is built up from start to end is very different to the sentence structure in, for example, English. So the translation of what I just said, the actual direct translation is me currently action making a video inside, I action explain me how learn Chinese, and then make that sentence in the past. And I know that sounds very complicated, but if you speak the language and if you start to really understand the sentence structure, it will make a lot of sense. So what's gonna happen throughout this process is as soon as you start focusing on improving your tones and understanding the actual sentence structure better and better, you're gonna be able to just add words to that. So let's say we have the word I am, 我是. So if I say I am tired, 我是累. If I say I'm hungry, 我很饿. You can slowly start to just add words to your basis, like to your basic vocabulary, because unlike English or other languages, the words don't really change. You just keep adding words to it, and that's just really gonna make it easy for you to keep stacking new words up to what it is that you currently already know. So if you just learn the basics like I want, this one, that one, me, them, it's super easy to just say they're tired, they're hungry, they're busy, I'm busy, we're busy. It's just gonna be very easy to just start expanding your vocabulary and become better and better at Chinese. Now, one thing that is a very big lesson to everyone watching, and this really does not apply only to learning languages, but and I don't know, it maybe it's because I'm Dutch. I think it's a very Dutch thing to be super direct, but I always had the mindset of rather mess up instead of waiting for perfection. And while I was learning Chinese in China, there was a lot of other people. So I went to a private school in Guilin in China, and there was a lot of people from all over the world that were also taking private lessons. And all of these people were, just as I was, learning Chinese every single day. But the difference between them and me was that we were both learning by the book, but I almost never really used my book. I would just go out there and speak and mess up all the time.
你们跟我荷兰朋友说一下，你好。
And like a very good way to explain this in my opinion is that you can simply not learn how to drive a car by just reading about how to drive a car. You have to get into the thing and actually start driving the car. And the same thing applies to pretty much everything, but especially with Chinese, is You just have to practice. Like if there's certain words that you don't know in Chinese yet, just say them in English. If you get that foundation right, you can start, as I said just now, adding words to your vocabulary and become better and better at Chinese. So a lot of people were just on paper at a higher level in terms of Chinese, but I would speak way better because I would just go out there and just mess up all the time and start speaking to every single person I could find, and they'll help me as well. You know, like they would help me. They would give me feedback, or they would tell me, hey, you said this wrong, you said that right, you name it. So for those that want to learn anything, one of the best ways to go about this is to just start doing. And I know this is such a basic standard advice, but sometimes you just gotta say it and just do it. Just drop everything and do nothing else but just execute. Even though you're scared, just start to go out there, start speaking, and yeah, you'll probably make mistakes. But the thing is, the exact definition of learning is the same circumstances with different actions. So if you keep bumping into people and you keep wanting to speak English but you want to learn Chinese, it just doesn't make sense. Just go out there and change the actual action with the same circumstances, because that's going to show that you've learned. That's going to show that you are continuously just fighting for change, for improvement. So the next thing that is such an important lesson when wanting to learn a new language, and that is the environment. And yes, you can learn Spanish in the UK, but learning Chinese in anywhere in the world but China is extremely tough. And even like Spanish in the UK, it's obviously way more efficient if you were to just move to a Spanish-speaking country and just be exposed to it every single day. Now, that applied to learning Chinese as well. The change of scenery of being physically in China, being exposed to the culture, understanding the people has really resulted in me being able to learn Chinese really fast. I have spent almost 8 to 9 months in China itself, having about 6 to 7 hours a day of one-on-one tutoring, just speaking Chinese. And I was in a part in China that literally like no one speaks English there. So I was forced to speak Chinese on a daily basis. I had no other options, because the simplest English words like chopsticks or rice, they wouldn't even understand me. So I literally had no option but to speak Chinese. Now, on top of this, a very, very valuable lesson that I want to give you: if you want to learn stuff, that's fine. But one thing that I have always done throughout my entire career is position myself in ways where I was learning, but also making money. And like a really good way to describe that is being paid to learn. And what I did was, while I was in Guilin, there was a company that was selling products on Amazon. It was a Chinese company, and the owner of the Learning Institute was an American company. They introduced me to one of the founders of that company. They were a massive company, had like 600-700 employees in China. And I started working with them. I managed to close them on a retainer, which was, one of, like, back then it was a pretty big retainer. I think it was like 7 or 8K US dollars every month, and I held on to that for like a year or so. So while I was learning, I was actually at their office in the after hours working with a small Chinese team, and I was helping them with designing packaging, making sure that the copywriting was accurate, because they were making a lot of mistakes on the actual packaging itself with copywriting. And I was speaking on a daily basis with my own team, with other people, like other departments within that company, and I was just learning. I was just being paid to learn. And whatever you do, may that be designing, learning a new language, try and position yourself in a way where you're gonna be paid and compensated for your time while still learning the thing that you want to learn. That has been one of the biggest hacks that I can give anyone. Like, just make sure you're paid to learn. It's the best thing ever. So something else that I have learned, which was not necessarily during the time of learning Chinese, but more now, reflecting on having done all of that and using it on a day-to-day basis, is that not every decision or everything that you decide to do right now has to make sense. A lot of people, when I told them, and again, like I was like 14, 15, walking around in this small town in the Netherlands saying like, oh yeah, I want to learn Chinese, I want to move to Hong Kong. And everyone's like, why would you want to do that? Like, it makes, yeah, you can probably make a lot of money, but it makes no sense. Like, why would you do that? One, it's extremely hard. Two, it's super far away. And the thing is, like, first of all, don't ever care about what other people think. As long as you believe that it's the right thing to do, just stick with it. And the second thing is, really looking back at it now, the things that I unconsciously just picked up on. For example, the fact that China is a huge economy, the US is a huge economy, they're doing crazy amounts of business. And since the age of 13, just coming to China and year on seeing these new developments, like coming to a city like Shenzhen, and then a year after being back in Shenzhen and feel like it's a complete different city, it just showed me the amount of growth that the country has seen. Things such as short form content, which became really big very quickly in China, which again, like TikTok is a Chinese company, eventually started to repeat itself overseas. And I started to realize and started to see these patterns of things that were happening there, where the market was adopting to these things, and then it was also happening overseas. So as a kid with big ambitions going there, and now being at the point where I have, you know, a fair amount of experience running businesses and dealing with people and interacting with different cultures, the decisions I've made from learning Chinese to the skills that I currently possess, from the way I can communicate to my knowledge about coding to my understanding of design, the opportunities that the market presented to me, I was ready for them. And that is probably the most important lesson that is not necessarily related to me learning Chinese, but just in general throughout my whole career, is that market timing is everything. If you take Elon Musk as an example, and he was born 10 or 20 years earlier, him wanting to build the things that he is building right now would have probably not made any sense. You know, like people probably wouldn't have cared too much, or like the world's view about climate change probably wouldn't have been as serious as it is now, where, you know, people wouldn't even care about electric cars or colonizing other planets. Like those things probably wouldn't have been relevant because the market timing was just not there. So for those watching, if you are currently in a point of your career where you know there's potential for another pivot to do something else, or know that the company that you're working on now is not the you know, the big grand vision, the next big thing that you want to do, or just in general with your career, make sure that you focus on skills and things that contribute to opportunities that may potentially present in the future. So what does that mean is that, for example, currently communities and, you know, founders creating a brand around who they are is a very big thing. Like if you look at majority of the big founders of big companies like Mark Zuckerberg or Sam Altman from OpenAI, or even Brian Chesky from Airbnb, the guy is announcing every single thing they do in their company himself on Twitter. And it really just shows how like these trends, and this is just like a random example, but it's something about the market timing, because it's a massive market. There's new adoptions of new ways of doing things in a different way, which knowledge is required on how to do those things. Like how do you build a brand around a founder? It's these things that you can now clock onto and start to develop skills to make sure that whenever there's an opportunity that's presented to you, you can just embrace them with both hands because you know you're ready for them. It's happened to me, and as I said, you don't have to exactly know everything, as long as you're just very conscious about what kind of decisions you make on what kind of skills you want to learn, because opportunities are everywhere. You just got to make sure that you're ready. Like another great one is the development of AI. I have no clue where this is going to go, but I know it's going to go somewhere, and I know there's a lot of expertise required to make sure that we can keep developing this, and obviously there's a massive amount of opportunity around all of that. So yeah, that said, I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.